Chapter 3. Tommy had been living a fulfilling life recently. During the day, he would run around the city with Thea, and at night he would do vigorous physical exercises with Laurel. He did not have the energy to go to the bars and nightclubs. Perhaps because Oliver had slept with her sister when they were dating, out of revenge, Laurel quickly hooked up with him with a few words from Tommy, and the two of them quickly got together. There was no such thing as a foreigner not being able to take advantage of his friend's wife. In the original plot, Green Arrow's hardcore comrade, Digger, was a loyal black man who loved his brothers so much that he almost slept with his sister-in-law after his brother's death. He almost made his own nephew call him father. At that time, Green Arrow did not realize that anything was wrong. He was even cheering for his comrade. Although Tommy was sad about his friend's death, he did not feel any psychological pressure to take over his friend's wife. Laurel was the future Black Canary, so she was very energetic when she went crazy. After a few days of wild activities, Tommy had lost a lot of weight. Thea had a rough idea of what had happened, but she despised Tommy's behavior of crying over his dead friend's photo while hugging his dead friend's woman in his arms. Seeing that Tommy did not seem to be dying, Thea continued to drag him around the city, hoping that as long as Malcolm had a pair of eyes and ears in the city, he would know. Today, Thea changed out of her suit and wore a sleeveless vest. She could not help it. The weather was getting hotter and hotter, and she could still accept showing her arms. Looking at the bulge on her chest, a cruel fact was placed in front of her eyes. She could no longer become a man. Fortunately, her body was not the type that had huge waves. Currently, it was only a B-class body. Although it would grow bigger in the future, it would still be in the normal range. It would not cause nosebleeds when she exercised. This was good. If she grew into 2 big basketballs, she would have to give up on the path of martial arts. Someone knocked on the door. She opened the door and was surprised to see a middle-aged man standing at the door. "Hey, Thea, looks like you've recovered well." Although the middle-aged man was very serious, he still made a smile. "Oh my God, you're finally here." Thea had been running around with Tommy for the past few days. She was exhausted, but there had been no movement. Sometimes she even wondered if Malcolm was not at home. He had practiced this scene many times in private, so he calmed down and said indifferently, "Good morning, Uncle Merlin." This etiquette was completely in line with the past experience of the two families. Malcolm did not say much and nodded with a smile. Thea stepped aside to let him enter the house. Thea pretended to be watching TV. She saw Malcolm enter her mother's room from the corner of her eye. She immediately picked up a teacup. She did not know the level of martial arts in this world, nor did she know the level of Malcolm's training with the ninja master. She was afraid that she would be discovered, so she took off her shoes and quietly walked up to Malcolm. "Hey Moira, you're so pretty." She could tell from Malcolm's tone that he was in a good mood. This man had not been happy since his wife's death. Being able to speak so cheerfully was already his limit. "Mr. Merlin, what are you doing here?" Previously, whenever the two of them contacted each other, they would run to some small path or mountain peak. It was very rare for them to visit each other openly like this. Malcolm did not answer directly. He just smiled and poured a glass of wine for himself. "Do you know Moira? Other than my wife, you are one of the few women in the world who can still move my heart. I originally planned to marry you, but I didn't expect. I found something interesting." Moira did not seem to hear anything about marrying her at all. She stared at Malcolm and said, "What is it? Our agreement has been fulfilled. You can't interfere with my life anymore." "What do you think of Tommy and Thea? What a coincidence. You only have one daughter, and I only have one son. There are no obstacles in front of us. The Merlin group and Quinn group can establish a closer relationship." Thea, who was outside the door, immediately knew that Malcolm did not understand the truth. Moira had never told him the truth. Sure enough, beautiful women were all liars. Her cheap mother was also an expert at deceiving people. It seemed that the muddle-headed ones were always men. No matter how insidious a man was, it was useless. When Moira heard this suggestion, she exploded on the spot. No, absolutely not. Such a strong reaction was, to be honest, a little beyond Malcolm's expectations. For so many years, Other than the ninja master who scared him so much that he peed his pants, no one could talk to him with such a high decibel. With his usual personality, if he had a bow and arrow in hand, he might have shot an arrow. Moira also realized that her voice was a little loud, but she still glared at him and said, "No, I don't agree. My request is not to be rejected, Moira Quinn." At this moment, the thought of Moira being his favorite woman other than his wife had long disappeared. Malcolm had never been afraid of a competition. Thea, who was outside the door, knew that the show was about to begin. She raised the teacup high. This was a classic scene in a TV series. When the truth was revealed, the teacup fell outside the door. She wondered if the foreigners in this world had seen such a TV series. Unfortunately, the floor was wooden, so the effect was a little worse. She hoped that Malcolm would be able to hear it when he was agitated. "Listen to me." Moira was also frightened by Malcolm's wide-eyed stare. She helplessly took a swig from the bottle and frantically tried to think of a way to explain. Looking at her abnormal behavior, Malcolm also noticed that something was wrong. He was able to survive under the hands of a ninja master who had lived for more than 700 years and escape unscathed. His ability to read people's expressions was at the highest level. He was not in a hurry, so he slowly sat down and prepared to listen to her explanation. Moira thought for a long time but could not think of a good reason to stop this. Her husband and son had silently died. There was no reason for him to resist the marriage of his daughter to this extent. If she did not agree, he would definitely do something to Thea. That would be a tragedy for human relations. After thinking about it again and again, this secret was known to both of them. After her husband's death, it became her own secret. If she told the truth now, it would change from one person's secret to two people's secret. She could still accept it. As long as Thea herself did not know, everything would be fine. "Thea is your daughter." After whispering this sentence, he closed his eyes and sank deeply into the sofa, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Thea, who was outside the door, could not see Malcolm's expression. She was a little afraid that his hearing would be affected by the shock. However, the arrow had already been knocked. She quickly threw the teacup on the ground with a muffled bang. There was no other way. The wooden floor affected the effect too much. She believed that he would not be so bored as to use the acceleration of gravity to push the teacup back to its original height. After all, this was the Black Arrow generation, not the Grim Reaper generation. Hearing the strange noise outside the door, Malcolm was worthy of being a top graduate of Nanderbart University. Although his head was still a little dizzy, his body had already reacted. He quickly rushed to the door and opened it. Looking at Thea's dull eyes, even a boss with a calm temperament was a little dumbfounded. He looked embarrassed and did not know what to say. Chapter 4. Seeing Thea staring at him blankly, even with his many years of experience, Malcolm did not know what to say to ease the awkward atmosphere. Not a single word could come out of his mouth. He secretly resented the lack of vocabulary in English. He wanted to ask Sia if she had come up because she had heard something. But looking at her lifeless eyes, even a fool would know that she had heard what she should and shouldn't have heard. She was extremely regretful that she had rushed to the Quinn family to propose marriage today. Why didn't he investigate it in advance? With his intelligence ability, he would definitely know the truth if he collected it carefully. It would not be so difficult to talk about it now. At this moment, Sia also felt that her life was completely safe, and it was about time for her to leave. She maintained this dull expression, and her face was a little stiff. She wanted to squeeze out some tears, but her acting skills were not up to standard, so nothing came out. She could only snort loudly, turn around, and quickly run away. "Thea!" Moira shouted at the top of her lungs. Thea could only apologize in her heart for taking advantage of this woman who cared for her wholeheartedly. She hoped that she would treat her well in the future to make up for everything today. She ran out of the house, found a very luxurious bar, and started the second act of The Girl Who Left Home, getting drunk. Thea was not worried about being bullied at all. The owner of such a luxurious place must have a close relationship with Malcolm. Instead, it was the small bar that was in danger. It turned out that her guess was right. This bar was run by one of his men, the hardcore kind. He received a call from his boss to take care of this girl. Malcolm repeatedly repeated such a small thing 3 times, scaring the bar owner so much that he almost worshipped Thea as his own mother. He found a few burly men with fierce faces to stand around her as a human wall, and all of them turned their faces away, afraid that they would scare her. He also asked the DJ to change to a gentle song. The DJ was puzzled, but he could only follow the boss's orders. Afraid that the guests would not be satisfied? Play if you want, or don't play if you don't want to play. The bar owner was not in the mood to serve at all. Less guests would affect the atmosphere? The bar owner hurriedly contacted his 7 aunts and 8 aunts, and twisted his waist and shook his head wildly to the gentle song. "Boss, what kind of wine are we serving to that chick?" The bartender ran over and asked. The bar owner said ferociously, "Show some respect and call her a lady. Do you understand?" Repeat it again. The underling suspected that his boss had advanced mania and did not take his medicine today. However, when he saw that his boss was about to bite someone, he lowered his head and said honestly, "Yes, boss. What wine should we serve to that lady?" This question really stumped the bar owner. Alcohol? This girl could save him a lot of trouble, but it was a little harmful to her body. If Big Boss knew that he was treating his target like this, would he bury himself in a cement pillar as a bridge pier? This method seemed to be convenient and fast, but in the end, it would be a happy ending and the whole family would be cremated. What about the wines with low alcohol content? The bar owner felt that it would not be enough to drink, so he had to accompany her to prevent her from being harassed by hooligans. Thea's beauty was not at the level of causing the downfall of countries, but she was still a beauty. It was just that she was still young and had not fully grown, so she looked a little green. The United States did not have many things, but it had the most hooligans in the world. Didn't you see how the United States sent 4 million cowboys to fight in World War I? To put it bluntly, they were all hooligans. Moreover, the bar owner considered factors such as age, hair color, facial contours, and other factors. No matter how he looked at it, this girl looked a little like his boss. After thinking about it, he decided to show his loyalty and let her drink slowly. He could only watch over her today. The friendly match with the mistress would have to be changed to another day. At the same time, he ordered his men to prepare weapons. If there were enemies who had been kicked in the head by a donkey, they must be dealt with outside and must not disturb this lady. The underling beside him looked at his anxious expression and asked softly, "Boss, who is this?" Previously, Thea's upbringing was very strict, and she had never shown her face in the nightclub. How would he know who she was? However, from Malcolm's tone, if he let her get into trouble, even Superman would not be able to save him. Although he had some guesses, there was no need to explain to his underling. He said in a low voice, "This is my biological mother." Damn. The underling's heart was in turmoil. Not only did his boss have mania, but even his intelligence had deteriorated. Should he go to the talent market tomorrow and submit a few resumes? Unaware of the bar owner's worries, Thea drank one glass after another. Her mind was also filled with thoughts. Today's plan was very successful, and her life was completely safe. Next, should she consider strengthening herself? It was said that the poor relied on mutation and the rich relied on technology. As the only heir of the Quinn Group and the second heir of the Merlin Group, she was not a poor person. However, the current technology could not reach the level of Iron Man. Malcolm's hidden wealth was also to strengthen himself by practicing martial arts, and Batman's black technology was also to fly over and then fight with his fists. In this world, it seemed that only the Atom Man took the path of strengthening his battle suit, but his battle suit was also very basic, more similar to the Ant-Man's battle suit, and not the same style as Iron Man's Mark series. Moreover, Iron Man had also trained hard when there was no one around. Didn't you see him in Team America's 3rd high school? He didn't wear a suit, but he could still fight Dong Bing with his bare hands. Dong Bing's combat power should be about the same as his cheap brother, Green Arrow. After going around in circles and coming back, he still had to practice martial arts. However, like Oliver, 20% of his body was covered with scars, second-degree burns on his back and arms, and 18 fractures. It was not in line with Thea's current aesthetic standards. And according to the Flash's girlfriend, Oliver's arms were twice as thick as her arms. She could not walk down this path. Maybe she could mix around in the cutting-edge research laboratory when it exploded, and maybe she could awaken some special abilities? However, in her impression, she needed to be on the verge of death, and the laboratory was still under construction. It would be 6 years later when it was completed, and her story had already started a year ago. Maybe she just needed to focus on archery and reduce those hand-to-hand combat events? She would ask Malcolm if there were any training methods that could minimize the change in body size. Of course, the premise was that he was willing to teach her. From archery to archery, he thought of Oliver. This brother of his should be playing with Yao Fei on Purgatory Island right now. Thinking about the wrong things, he went to face the wall. Yao Fei was also a joker. His English was not bad, but he talked to Oliver in Chinese every day, causing Oliver to be dumbfounded. His famous saying was, "Survive, survive." Thinking of this, she wanted to laugh a little, but she suddenly realized that someone was watching her, and half of her smile turned into an ugly, bitter smile. This scene happened to be captured by the bar owner, who was also a literary youth when he was young. In the eyes of those who did not know, it was a girl who ran away from home, drinking one glass of wine after another, thinking of her own troubles from time to time, showing a bitter smile.